Okay, good morning, everybody. Dr. Rick Kendall here, and hoping you're going to be there on this Wednesday morning when Apostle Chris is away and Lady Jill are away on a trip. And so I am here with, filling in his seat is Sean Froling.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
And it's great to have you here with us, and just kind of what's on your heart.
Well, good morning. And man, I was just thinking that of you, knowing we were going to have this conversation together, and thinking you must be ragged. I mean, you've been going and going, and as soon as I think that you've done enough by, organizing and hosting an entire weekend seminar, then you're also teaching at Bible school and doing your morning program on Facebook. And
yeah,
how do you how do you keep it fresh when you have so much to do? How do you because it seems like every time you get up, it's very intentional. Like it's not like rote, or you're just something that you've read and you're just regurgitating.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, I just thank God for Him giving the energizing and the strength and just the passion, And to me, I find that the more I listen, the more I have to share. In other words, throughout the weekend for Kingdom Advanced Training Seminar, I was able to do more listening and taking in, and that energizes me. I know you're probably the same way, to where then you feel like, well, next time I get up, it will be fresh, because I'm a continual student. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think you and I have that in common, that we're observant and we seek to understand. And I can see how that gives you fresh content, especially since you've been meditating on the Word for years. Maybe you're always making these connections. Yeah. And then you have this ability to kind of just organize and present that. Yeah. But that's just such a, thank you for every time you bring a word. It's fresh. I mean,
thank you so much. I give God the glory and receive that, because, I don't know. I don't mean to sound falsely humble, but I'm amazed that He can use me, And again, I say that not trying to belittle myself, but I just really know how much it is Him. Yeah. Because it has to be. And I think once we get too full of ourselves, then we cease to be fresh.
You had mentioned that it's just a passion for you. I mean, where did that passion come from? Was it something that the Lord developed in you, or that, for you, it's probably inseparable from ministry as a vocation. But I'm wondering, for the audience and for myself, we're not, vocational ministers, whatever distinction that is, I guess. But, for the normal person who might be part of Kingdom Reign Ministries, or, part of one of your ministries as you're mentoring, or just, happening by listener, we throw around, not just throw around, we dive deeply into the idea of purpose. And, and so, how would you describe how you have been able to express your ppurpose, find your purpose, and obviously, like I said, it's tied to ministry for you, but maybe we could also talk about that in a way that the lay person could say, who's wrestling. Like, I just had a conversation with my dear friend yesterday, and he's like, he's been questioning his vocation for a long time. Okay. But he's also a follower of Jesus, and he does things that help people. Yeah. But it's like, I think a lot of people wrestle with that. Sure. And we talk about that a lot here at this ministry. Yeah. That we flow out of our identity. But how do we practice? I think some people might need some dots connected, or some questions to wrestle through.
Well, that's good. And this is unscripted, isn't it?
Very much so.
I appreciate that question, because I actually, on Monday, I do a thing called New Day on Facebook. And I was sharing how assignments change, but purpose unfolds. Yes. And I think that's important to know, especially like you're talking about your friend who is kind of wrestling with, where am I at? Because when as we say, the grace moves, then we don't have the same you might say, passion to do what we've been doing because we know, well, he's somehow progressing me. And I would start off with, when I was growing up, even as a teenager, I didn't have much confidence, and I was extremely shy, and if I had to get up in front of people, I was just like, no way. I would just get so nervous I would go numb. I couldn't even speak. And then when I felt God called me to him, and then, the result being ministry, I was amazed. I was like, you talking to me? And I just had to get over myself because I'm like, you must see something I don't. And he always does. But it's been, life is a journey of really discovery of who you never knew you were, but always God intended you to be. And I think, when I began to move into that and began to say, I don't even know yet who I am. I need to find out who I am. Well, a lot of classic ministry is more about doing for your worth than it is trying to be who you are in him. So this kind of unfolded a whole process in me of, kind of getting that rearranged in my life to say I don't have to produce something to be worthwhile, and I don't have to get my worth out of that. And I began through, a time when here in the Treasure Coast, my wife and I actually were separated 30 years ago and looked like it was over for us in ministry. But, during that time, God really, death, burial, and resurrection time, just began to reveal to me who I am in him more and begin to introduce kingdom principles and those kind of things. But long story short is that it just really boiled down to purpose is really an unfolding first of who we are. Not what we do first, but who we are, and then it becomes what we do. And those assignments will change. And I know a lot of preachers that are really, and even in business people, they're really unsatisfied because they're still doing what they did instead of becoming who they are. And I think that this is where purpose begins to have a different dynamic than most of the time we've heard in places. Because it's about, my assignment's changing, and I'm not betraying my former assignment by accepting this one. So I don't know if that answers.
No, that's so good. I mean, I used quite a bit of language with that with my friend, trying to help him through this. Because I've certainly experienced that. I think especially in America where we have so many comforts and so much luxury, and it's not hard to get food, and
right.
There are people struggling, but in general, we're able to think about these things. What kind of job do I want? Not just can I get a job?
Right.
And so, I think about, there's almost, and a lot of the I'm very careful about what I show my children, 12 and under, because there's so many shows.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll say that I'm careful what I show them, but then I'm not afraid to show them things to debrief with them and help them understand, what's being presented to them, because a lot of what is being presented to them is like, you can do whatever you want, reach for the stars. And there's a real nugget of truth for that in that.
Yeah.
There's so many resources at our fingertips, and, but I do think also that there's value in just saying, well, where's I going with this? I don't want them to hear that they can. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes there's this ideal in our
right.
idea that in our heads that if our job is going to feel completely satisfying all the time.
Yeah.
Like if I just find, like there's that phrase, if you do what you love, you'll never work again. And I think again, there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably getting at what you were saying, that if you're living out of your purpose, and is it fair to say that it almost doesn't matter what the assignment is,
right?
If you're living out of your purpose, like in a way, it almost doesn't matter what job you're doing. It's not to say there's not an ill-fitting job. I think there is such a thing.
Yeah.
Because if you're not able to express your purpose, it's not that you can't grow in character, but that could really stymie just who you are and your expression of yourself, your authentic self. But so you think it's fair to say, like I was telling my friend, I'm like, if you weren't doing what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
As far as like for a job and formally and getting paid, you might be doing the same thing as far as how you're treating people, how you're counseling them,
Yeah.
how you're, and so I'm like, if you're working out of your purpose, and then again, and I did mention that, like, if you're struggling, like it's just such a burden, maybe it is the grace moving somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that transitional period is very difficult though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think when I listen to what you're saying, it because we have become such a performance-oriented society, we think that we automatically, like, we ask our children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And
Yeah.
they say a fireman, a policeman. Well, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But that'll change, because in discovery of who you are, your worth is in that. And, we haven't really gotten what am I trying to say? Used to
Mm-hmm.
having that kind of mentality, because I got to perform. And we do want to perform with excellence. But I think that oftentimes we think when something fails, or we failed at something, that's when, we feel like I am worth less now, and not what value do I have now. And I think that's been a trick of, what's a lot of the westernized world, but just the enemy has used, because really failure is just a way to see what you're not supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or where now, like we say, the grace maybe has moved. And also, I was telling our college class, I was teaching this past Monday, I said, assignments are sometimes when you do nothing. God has assigned you to do nothing. And I know that's kind of hard to grasp, because it's like, well, what do you mean? Well, there's been times I've asked God, are you putting me on the shelf? And he says, no, I've got you in an incubator. I've assigned you to a time where I'm building you. And if we don't allow that to happen, if we don't see the worth in that, then sometimes we will get lost, because we're really doing what others expect us to do.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, maybe there's times that we're so wired to express our purpose that we got around somebody and we were just flowing in that.
Yeah.
And we actually would hinder what the Lord was doing in them. Like our gift would prevent them from going and reaching out to the Lord or somebody else. Like,
yeah.
I think that's the challenging but most beautiful thing about just trying to live your life by the voice of God. I mean, obviously we live by principle, but the voice supersedes that. It's like, if he's whispering to you to go talk to someone or not to talk to someone, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, exactly. As I mentioned, when my wife and I went through that time of appearing like it was all over and it was just transition, we didn't see it that way at the time, but I lost, and again, I believe in titles as far as function. I do believe that they are given by God for specific reasons, but at that point in time, I lost all of them. And I thought, well, did I cease to exist? Who am I? And but what I found was that in the letting go of some of that, they were really functions in an assignment. But now my assignment was really relearning how to be a son. How to be a son of the living God. Not the one, but a son. And to find my worth in, before I ever could be called doctor, apostle, whatever, that I had to be happy with being a son. And I think that was probably the greatest part of relaunching, because I'm telling you what, I never dreamed he would give us now mentoring and a Global Embassy Network and all these things we're doing, and then end up here also being a part of the KRM family and all of those kind of things. And now people calling me Dr. Rick, some call me Apostle Rick, some still call me Pastor Rick. They can call me as long as they call me for supper. But, and I know they're important, but what I'm saying is, if God said lay it down tomorrow, I believe I would. because I just want to know what's the next thing that makes him fulfilled in me.
That's beautiful. I mean, maybe you could speak to people who are out there that they're in a vocation, they feel dry, they feel unsatisfied. You know, there's the practical financial, they need that check in 2 weeks or whatever it is. But they just sense that the Lord's moving them. And I do know that timing is something that is always unique to every person in every situation. That's why we listen to his voice and not, it's not like we're just telling everybody like leave everything.
Oh no,
right. But what would you say to someone that if you were counseling them that they were in that place that they're just waiting and they're struggling and either maybe they feel stuck, like they can't let go. Or maybe they know they've let go. They've given it to the Lord and they're like, Lord, I'll move. But there hasn't been that new door, like that next thing to jump to.
That's a great question. And hopefully I can help a little bit with that, because first of all, I think we have to define assignments or our work or a job. A lot of times we think if God is moving us forward into another level, dimension, of who we are, I think we think that means immediately it's got to be geographical, or it's got to be another business or another something else, when really it can be within the same thing. Because he's not really interested in you trying to like what you do. He's more interested in you liking you in him. In other words, that maybe he's just dealing with you within the place that you're at. And that will be the change. You'll be the one who is growing.
So the discontentment, don't assume that means that door is closing.
No.
It could be a pressing that's transforming you.
I have found many times, and in fact, just to be very open with you, I'm kind of in that place again. I'm thinking, Lord, you do know I'm 74 years old now. I mean, what is this with some stuff you're beginning to open up to me? And he says, I don't recognize age. And I'm never going to retire. I'm just going to retire. Did I say that right? Never going to. Anyway, I'm never going to retire. I'm going to retread. Is that right? I'm just going to keep being a nuisance to people.
Keep retreading.
But I said, Lord, why is this new dimension? Because now I find for my time in life, I love promoting more. I love helping others get out there in front more. I still love doing what I do as teaching and preaching, but mentoring. But I'm saying, God, and he says, I don't recognize age. I recognize purpose and fulfillment, of what I called you on the planet to do. So I feel like, well, does that mean I'm going to change locations? Does that mean, we go through these questions. Does it mean what does this mean? And it's interesting how God is patient with us and to us go through all our questions. He says, did I tell you to move? Just let me unfold this. And so it could be a dimension of many things. It could be just simply the way you're thinking has to open up. My wife is such, in many ways, a blessing to me, as I'm sure yours is to you. But the way she's a blessing to me is she always challenges me to think bigger. And sometimes it's frustrating. I'm thinking as big as I can right now. And she says, oh, no, honey, there's so much more. And so she's out there always challenging me to think bigger. And I thank God for that eventually. But I think that those are some of the things we need to realize, that it's not about so much the doing as what is he actually, causing to be increased, expanded in you.
Yeah. No, I think that's so good. I mean, so what I hear you saying is we can almost, and you can tell me if I'm not quite catching it here, but it's almost like there can be a presumption that in us that's like, no, I have to stay. Or I have to go. But what I hear you communicating is this willingness to do what the Lord is calling you to.
Absolutely.
And that might look like staying even though you don't want to.
Yeah, right.
It might look like leaving even though that's scary.
Yeah.
And that willingness is really where the transformation comes, right?
Yeah.
That malleability.
Yeah. Yeah, because really, I feel like that a lot of people put themselves through torture because they think this is the key thing, and I'm sure we have said it. What if I miss it?
Yeah.
I even had one of my college students ask the question in class, because we love interaction, and they said, what if we miss our assignment? What if we miss what we're supposed to do? And I said, the good thing is God gives you another test. And if you fail this one, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means now you know what not to do. So God, and I said, I think this is why he gives us the redeeming of time. Because he knows there's going to be times we're going to miss it. And times when, I know with my thick head sometimes just, Lord, I thought I knew. But I think the other thing is sometimes we feel like we're trying to tell God what the assignment is.
Yeah.
This is God, this is a passion. Well, passion is not your purpose. Passion is just a hint to it.
Yeah.
It's just like it becomes the why with eyes. So you have to let God redefine the whole thing. And I don't know with you, tell me, is that difficult for you? I know sometimes it is for me to let him define it. I think I know what it is, and then he says, well.
I mean, the short answer is yes. I'm struggling to find words to put any, substance to that. But yes, for sure. I mean, I just know that every time that his hand has been heavy on me or the circumstance has felt pressing, that when I've pressed into him and I have let go, I've never regretted it. There's always been a growth in character or an overcoming in victory in the situation, probably never as I expected it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Lord is gracious, though. He tells us what's to come. Other times he's kind of sneaky. Yeah, right. Kind of lays in wait, wants us. But I think good parents have a little bit of that, right?
Sure.
It's like sometimes I tell my kids to do something, and I know that to them it doesn't make sense.
Right.
I want to ask why so bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I just can't wait to bless them as soon as they obey, and I'll withhold.
Yeah.
But I want them to build that trust.
Yeah.
My dad has my best interest in me.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to stretch that in them,
Sure.
There was one time he was very gracious with me in my work where I had some new employees that were supervisors that I was frankly just felt very incompatible. Our communication styles, the way we approached things.
Sure.
I don't think they really saw me for who I was.
Yeah.
And I took it to the Lord in prayer, and I was like, this must be it. This must be your sign to tell me to leave.
Yeah.
And he said, actually, this, difficulty is my gift to you. This person that you find difficult is my gift to you because it's going to change. It's going to grow you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just knew, I was convicted immediately that I had to come to a place where I could be thankful for the difficulty.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I was going to, praise someone doing something unethical or immoral, but I was going to thank God for the situation.
Yeah.
And that he was going to be with me. I think a lot of times we have this idea of the future and we foresee it to be so terrible, and we forget like the Lord's going to be with us. Like somehow we can foresee the future and somehow he's not there, like I'm all alone, like the Lord's abandoned me, and that's a strange thing how we can do that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly what it came to pass. In a couple of years, I had to press into it. I was changed. They actually changed, and now we have a great working relationship, and we're better for it. We're better as a team. We have differences that complement. Yeah, and there's still some tug of war and still tension, but that's to be almost every relationship.
Yeah.
So sometimes God I think is gracious in the way He makes it more plain, other times less so, but he's always trustworthy in the way he's leading us. And there's a lyric I go to often. It's a Sarah Groves lyric. She says that there's never a pain that he won't recycle to bring great redemption, great gain. This idea that there's no suffering that isn't going to be outweighed in glory.
Okay.
And, as Paul puts it, and I think the weight of glory is more precious to us than anything, right?
Yeah.
This when we feel the Lord's pleasure over us, we feel aligned with him, and we're able to say, I'm more of who you made me to be.
Yeah.
I've discovered more of who you've unearthed more of my true self.
Yeah.
And we have the love and the closeness and fellowship with him that's worth way more than any Disney character overcoming their little, they're finding their perfect vocation or assignment. It's that relationship that we have with him. That's, I think the psalmist said, your love is better than wine, or your love is better than life itself. Right. So,
yeah. Listening to you, I think it also helps to redefine what we call a door of opportunity. Because a lot of times I think we tend to think a door of opportunity is escape from where I'm at right now. But it's not an opportunity to escape. Actually, I do a teaching about how a true door opened by God, it has a threshold. It threshes and holds you there.
Wow.
Until all that junk is cleaned off so you can go into the next place. So really, many times I think God's concept of an opportunity, a door of opportunity, is conflict. That conflict you talked about initially with those you work with was actually your door of opportunity for growth. It wasn't to escape the situation, it was to overcome it. Do you agree with that?
100%. No, you're speaking in my heart right now. So that common English phrase, well, maybe less common now, but threshold.
Yeah.
Have you studied that? Is that really what it is there something to that?
It's called, I think in the Greek, thorough. It's a thorough fair, but it's actually moving from one end to another, but in the process of having to understand that something has to happen. So it becomes a threshing, like, the scripture's talking about a threshing floor.
Yeah.
It's not to beat us up, but it's just to, like an airport security, make sure you don't have anything on you that's going to be bad for the next level.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, there's so much biblical imagery to that. I think of John 10 and the Good Shepherd who he guards the gate.
Yeah.
And it's through the gate that we enter. There's that entering through him. And then of course we see the curtain that's hung between the Holy of Holies.
Oh, yeah.
And there's this entering through that. That was a very dangerous threshold. If you weren't perfectly prepared, you would just be dead.
Yeah.
Literally struck dead from the presence, the perfection of God.
Yeah, right.
I think, I think there's a counterfeit to that. I think about a lot of self-help books and stoicness and hyper-masculinity, this idea, no pain, no gain, this kind of, like there may be a common grace that we do still build character, but, we don't just choose suffering for suffering's sake.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to share about kind of distinguishing the suffering that the Lord leads us to for change versus us just being like, oh, okay, suffering, good.
Yeah, I think so, because it's not even, I don't think it's focused on the suffering. It's focused on what has to be eliminated so we can progress. And that's when we talk about the sufferings of Christ. It doesn't mean we go around suffering. It just means we are long suffering. We say, God, develop what you need to develop. The Apostle Paul said, I can't think of where it's found in Scripture, but he said, a great and effectual door is open unto me. But he says, and there are adversaries. I think it's interesting. I once said, Lord, why are there adversaries at an open door? Why do I have to face that? And he said, because adversaries mean they are adverse to you going through. Because they know you really will be moving into a place that's going to be a place you never have to come back. So there are adversaries and there's obstacles. And I think identifying what is really happening really is part of going through that open door. Because God deals with us first.
Would you be willing to dive a little bit deeper into the distinction between obstacles and adversaries?
Yeah, I think adversaries, well, first, obstacles are those mountains. He said there in Mark, he said, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you could say to the mountain, be thou removed, which means they must have been moved out of place at some point, so you're removing them out of the way. And they are something there that are challenges that not necessarily are anything other than just obstacles, but adversaries are those things that the enemy puts in place, whether it's circumstances or whatever, that is particularly against you going through, because there is some benchmarks in our life that we have to be able to recognize so that we can go past them. So, and I think that when we meet those kind of challenges, that we have to say, well, first of all, if I'm an overcomer, I can't overcome unless there's something to come over. So I'm going to not look at the conflict, I'm going to look at the conquest. And that's why I'm seated up there in heavenly places.
Yeah, I'm an overcomer, and I rebuke every hard thing that comes in front of me. Like you're saying, like there's something that's not fitting about that, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
I do think about that. Like there's, sometimes we take deliverance too far, and every time there's a red light that we have to stop at in the traffic, that we're rebuking Satan or something. It's like, well, no, there's sometimes there's just things processes we have to go through.
It's not, so much talking to, although he says you can say to the mountain, but he didn't mean necessarily you have to always talk to the mountain. It just means your very being of where you really are in Christ is going to talk to it. I don't believe we talk to the enemy, but I do believe that where we come to a resolute understanding of, okay, well, I'm going through. That's all there is to it. Then I think when we walk into a building, all those kind of adversarial things begin to flee. But we have to know first that greater is he that's in us than he is in the world.
Yeah, I do think that what activates, sometimes what completes that kind of dispersion of darkness when we do open our mouth and even maybe speak a rebuke isn't so much the formula of the rebuke or that they needed some kind of but it's our faith activated. We've said, hey, I'm a child of God. I have authority here. Yeah. And this is ill-fitting. I'm not part of you. And you don't have authority here. And so just get on, and I think that can be overly demonstrative in certain circumstances. But, I was at a previous church. I remember someone was talking about their missionary. I was really wrestling with tongues early on in my Christian walk. And this person gave an example of when they were on a mission trip in India and there was a blind person. And they discerned that there was a demon behind the blindness, and they didn't know how to pray, so they started praying in tongues, and that person was actually delivered and healed from blindness.
Praise God.
Which is, it's a beautiful story. And what I took from that was I was like, because I'm like, the person who prayed in tongues had no idea what he was saying. I don't even know if the demon knew what he was saying. I mean, it probably didn't even matter if it was a language. Yeah. The fact that they expressed something was a faith activation that I think, for whatever reason, allowed the manifestation of the kingdom in a more full way. Yeah. And so, I really appreciate this ministry and the culture here, because there's not really much to do about how we do things. It's not really, there's not a lot of focus on that. It's really just much more of the freedom of expression. Yeah. But there's still this beautiful expectation and encouragement to be expressive. Any thoughts on that?
Well, God is always into expanding us. And again, we have westernized ideas of what that means. Oh, more money, more success, and all those kind of things. But But in expansion, and we talked about this at Kingdom Advanced Training Seminar, that he said to Jeremiah, I've made you a prophet over nations. In other words, he told him, this is, what you are going to accomplish on the earth, at least into a dimension, a degree that will be carried on. He says, and I've called you over nations, but you have to throw down. Sorry, root out. Root out, pull down, build and plant. I think throwdown's in there too. So in other words, a lot of it was going to have to be, before my kingdom can colonize and expand, a lot's going to have to be undone. There's going to have to be a lot of things you let go. Because we know Jeremiah says, I'm just a kid. I can't even talk, and here you're calling me to this. But God knew ahead of time who he really was. So, if he would have went just, I'm baling hay, I'm trying to stay hidden from the enemy, and that must be who I am, then we limit ourselves. And like you say, we have learned through this KRM family that it's not so much about what are you, doing, or what is your concept of who you are, but how can we expand? What do we need to let go of that's really a wrong concept about ourselves, or about opportunity or doors or whatever it is? And, I don't know about you, but that's a constant thing with me. Mm-hmm. I wish I could tell you. I keep thinking, God, I feel like I'm letting go more than I'm getting.
Taking hold of. Yeah.
But, I guess that's a good way to keep getting, because I'm already full. But in order for him to keep fulfilling, I have to let something go.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's something really that touches on the, and we talked about this last week with Apostle, this idea that the truest and fullest expression of the Christian life is in community. So when you let go, you might have a real lack. Either the Lord will fill that in time, or he'll use someone else. Yeah. And but sometimes you won't be able to receive that until you've let go. And there's this kind of ironic or counter intuitive thing that happens when everyone just keeps having each other's back. Yeah. Instead of everybody, always looking over their shoulder, thinking like, oh no, not again. Like, I've got to self-preserve. I've got to self-defend. I'm so offended all the time. Everyone's out to get me. When all of that shifts, and it's like, wow, everyone's taking care of each other. It frees us to give. And I don't think there's any spiritual gifts that are self-serving. It's always giving out to other people. Not that it's not satisfying, or that it's beautiful because we're in our purpose, but it's not for our own healing. It's for the healing of others. And until we're all operating and able to receive, it's not going to flow. There's not going to be this kind of circulation. Yeah. Well, on that note, what would you tell somebody? I mean, how in your journey that you are determining or able to determine more what is truly something God is got you to be or to do, to shift or not shift, or is a grace moved or not moved? How have you come to the point to where in your journey, and we're all growing, but I mean, how have you kind of come to terms with that? Yeah, it's a great question. I think that there's a convergence in me when I come to these moments of uncertainty, and one is I'm always seeking the peace of God. Yeah. So if something feels very unsettling, sometimes there's that unsettling because I'm just afraid of what to do, what the Lord told me to do. Yeah. But that's a different feeling than just feeling really unsettled. Like this idea that nothing, it's kind of the difference between guilt and shame, right? This idea that like the Lord will call you out when you've done something wrong. He will convict you, the Spirit of God, because he's not, that can't fellowship with him. versus he's never going to condemn who you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's times where I start to realize I'm not in peace.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel right. I don't feel like I'm right with the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think early on in my Christian walk there, probably the way the gospel is presented to me, and probably just in my immaturity, there was always this idea, well, it must be out of God's grace. And, there must be like some, his grace has run out. I better go confess again. I better go get right with him.
Right.
If I died right now, I don't know if I'm going to heaven, and that's an exhausting place to be.
Yeah.
Over and over again. But as I've just continued to go to him over and over and over again and just been like, Lord, what? I found that there was never a time that he was like, it's a good thing you came to me because, man, that fire was going to lick you. He was always like, don't you know I've always loved you?
Yeah.
Don't you know you never fell away?
That's right.
I never changed.
Yeah.
Right? The Lord's saying to me, he's never changed, but I was the one that was shifting.
Yeah.
And I think that, so I'm always seeking the peace of God as it comes to my being. And sometimes that's hard to find. I do find that counsel of others is critical for me.
Yeah.
I have dear friends, you and Apostle included, that I could go to, I could ask your advice, and I believe with full confidence that you would be able to listen to me. Mm-hmm. There's no sin or mistake that I could confess to you that you would be like,
yeah,
that's a little too far, we're going to have to end this meeting.
Right.
There's, because you guys have been forgiven much. And so there's much grace for you towards others.
Yeah.
And so that's very important for me, finding counsel in other people.
Yeah.
And I do believe that the Lord has given me quite a bit of wisdom as I've sought him through the years, but I still know there are many others with much more wisdom. And so I'm always pulling from people's wisdom and clarity and discernment. And so that, and then, I try not to move until I have a certainty and I have peace.
Yeah.
And if I do feel afraid, which that is probably my growth edge, like maybe that's, some people can relate to that. Others may not. Some people, it's more about slowing down. They're always jumping.
Right.
They're ready to go.
Yeah.
And the Lord is like, ho, ho, ho. Let's rein it back.
Yeah.
That's less me. In fact, my wife gets a little frustrated with me because she's like, are you going to make a decision? Are you going to go? But that's why we are good for each other.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do find that for me, my growth edge really has been trusting that I'm not just going to make a mistake. I don't, like you said, it's even if I fail, quote unquote, fail, what's the worst that would happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, what's the worst that would happen? I mean, okay, there might be financial ruin. Mm-hmm. Let's just think the worst of it. What if I lose my home? What if my wife is upset and we're destitute? But the Lord will never, because of the Father he is, will never let that overcome us.
Yeah.
He will always, like you said, redeem the time, redeem the mistakes. So sometimes I'll go to that place and I'll say, what am I afraid of then?
Yeah.
Why not move forward? So there's some things that have helped me. I don't know if that comes across, but
yeah, definitely. And I think that is part of the journey. It's the learning through the journey and the continual being a student, of a disciple, that follows. And I think that, sometimes people, the most difficult thing is to feel like, well, I missed it. Well, doesn't mean that the target's not still there. Mm-hmm. It means get another arrow out of the quiver and just listen more carefully because, nobody really is a failure. There can be times of failing, but if you've learned from it, the difference between, wisdom and a fool is simply will you learn from it? Mm. And that's the fine line, just will you learn from it? Because our mistakes, and not that we seek to make them, but, our mistakes are just going to build the character that we, when we hear from God and we say, I've learned something, and we change the way we think.
Yeah. You know, that phrase you mentioned a couple of times, you know, we're afraid we missed something. You know where else that comes up a lot is with single people. They're afraid they've missed their spouse, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of room to talk here because I was married fairly early in my life, but I do remember what it's like being single, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
But I remember, I'm so grateful the Lord showed me that was a lie early on, because I would always think, well, what if I miss her?
Yeah.
You know, what if my eyes aren't open to her and I don't make the right decision, or I'm not bold enough and you don't ask, you know? And there was such a peace that came when I was able to recognize that as a lie, and just say, you know, if the Lord is good and he has a good thing for me, and he has a good wife for me, he's not going to let me so easily miss it. Yeah. So I don't know if there's someone out there that needs to hear that, but be patient.
Yeah, because you know, my one of my sons always would say, Dad, I just constantly wonder what if, and he said what if so much. I said, and it just came to me one day. I said, you know, if what if really should have, it shall be.
That's very good.
You know, and that's the only way you would want it anyway. So, you know, I think if we will, the key is learning how to rest in God and His grace to continually work with us. And if our heart's towards Him, then He'll put our gaze in the right direction. Because passion alone, I have to share this, passion alone is dangerous. You know, it can be passion without purpose can become lust.
That's right.
You know, or passion can even become apathy, believe it or not. Passion without truly understanding God's purpose can become hatred. So, you know, passion has to have purpose constantly guiding it, driving it. Passion can't drive purpose. It's got to be the other way, because then at least I know there's something in me that's constantly on fire and saying, you know, well, this, you know, just because you love football doesn't mean that's your purpose. It could be a distraction if you don't find your purpose.
Wow. Man, you just dropped some really rich stuff there. So how did you discover, because I think that's entirely true, it's completely resonating, everything you just said. How did you discover that, and maybe you can help us make the connection that passion without purpose can lead to anger?
Well, I think because it goes back to, we think that the passion, purpose, and all of that is about what we're going to do. And we're going to throw all of our energy behind what we're going to do, and that's important. But I would say that just by an experience, in my preconceived, I tell you what, I was a little bit naive. I'm going to say it. I was a lot naive. And I thought ministry was going to be kind of a series of accomplishments, you know. And so I thought, well, I've really got a passion. I couldn't identify it, but I knew God called me. And I could go into all of that, but it was a powerful thing. And I tried to now put it together the way I understood. I kind of called it this ladder of ministry. You know, well, I'm going to start off, I'm going to go to Bible school, and I'm going to get my ordination, and I'm going to get my license, and then I'm going to probably have to be a youth pastor, and then I'll be an associate pastor. In fact, you kind of get a kick out of this. My first associate pastor, they called me the assistant pastor, but they abbreviated it in the bulletin. I was the ASS''T pastor. Like, well, I think, can we redo that? But anyway.
That's not the title I was expecting.
That wasn't it at all. So God said, a little bit of humbling there.
Yeah. I know I'm stubborn. That's stubborn.
And then I became a pastor, and I was going up what I thought was, this is the ladder of how we're going to accomplish. And I had that passion, but passion was driving it based on what I understood the system said. But then I began to realize when some of those rungs in the ladder started breaking, and I started feeling like I'm at the bottom of the ladder again, I'm like, God, what are you trying to tell me? And I began to see that purpose had to first start with, who are you? I'm building character before I care about performance. And getting that in line, saying, okay, purpose has to drive the passion. Then I find that true God-ordained opportunities for working came to me. I didn't try to pursue them. And that's the way it's been throughout my entire walk. And like even now, as I said, he's presenting some fresh things to me. I'm like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And, Lord help me. And he goes, I will again. So I don't know if that answers that.
Well, I bless you in all the future, what the Lord's unfolding you, because it's beautiful. And yeah, I can't get over some of the truth you just dropped a couple minutes ago. I love what you said to your son, that what if, should have been, it shall be. I think that's amazing. My dad used to say shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's like you can't have that mentality. You could regret, and people get stuck. They doom loop all the time.
Doom loop. That's I'm going to remember that doom loop.
This doom looping where we just we have this. We keep thinking, oh, what if it could have been, and then it leads us back to feel like our current emotions, and then we go back and we just keep going back, and I think we always carry this could and should over us all the time, but maybe we need to carry over us the shall. The Lord shall do it. And then you said, again, to bring it back up, that passion without purpose can lead to lust, but then you also said hatred, apathy. And apathy, I was thinking of that verse. It's for lack of vision that my people perish. That word perish that's a violent word.
It is.
You're going to cease to exist. But maybe that's the hatred and the apathy, and the lust. What is it is it James that says that we devour each other? We're biting each other all the time. And eventually we'll just devour each other. We live in that place. And so, gosh, maybe we need to speak a word of hope to those that are stuck in the place of looping. That have found themselves in apathy or caught up in lust. Lust can be a terrible taskmaster. And
maybe instead of a doom loop, really, as you're saying, maybe now see that actually that is a door of opportunity. It's actually God's way of saying to you, this thing is done. So see now how I'm moving you into something. And the reason why you wouldn't recognize it, as you said, as a doom loop, if it wasn't that you're tired of it. And you're tired of it because he made you to constantly pursue him into greater understanding of who you are.
So how does someone grab hold of that? And it seems like what you're saying, and this can come across very trite, but let go. How can we? What do you say to someone who's struggling to let? Well,
maybe it would just be forgive yourself. Guess what? One thing when I was in the midst of some things, back in that time when I thought it was all over, I said, God, I can't believe I let these people down, and I didn't. If woulda, coulda, shoulda, and all that. And I was really having a pity party. I would have invited people, but nobody would come. But I was having a terrible time. And he said, God said this to me. He said, who do you think you are? I said, oh. And he said, what makes you feel like you're so above all of these things? He said, that's why you need me. He says, you need to let go of your concept of, and he said, even putting yourself down is a form of conceit. And I was very conceited about being self-righteous. And that was one of the things that it took months for me to really begin to regurgitate and get out of me. Because I didn't realize that I thought I was being holy, and I was just being holy me. Self-righteous. And once I began to see, forgiving myself simply means that I realize, why not me?
Amen.
Why couldn't it have been me? Evidently, I was way in the way. So then letting go of that is simply saying, but I've learned from it.
Yeah.
And now, God, you are helping me to realize who I really am.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe it might help some people to have a little practical to this. If you are in that place, I do think that it's important to speak things out loud.
Yeah.
Forgiving yourself, you have to speak it out.
Yeah.
There's something that makes it real. There's an exchange that happens, and sometimes I don't know if this is true, but it helps me to think of it in this terms, is that we have made agreements and contracts have been signed with darkness. Yeah. And when we speak the opposite, those contracts are ripped up.
Yeah, yeah.
And that we need those to be canceled.
Well, to your point, I've actually had this. I'm not saying this is some magical thing, but I'm saying it's like a prophetic act, you might say. But take whatever it is you've not forgiven yourself, write it down, then crumple it up and throw it in the trash.
Yeah, or even in the fire.
Yeah, or in the fire. There you go. That'll take care of it.
Yeah. Nobody else can pick it up.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you again. Our time is up, believe it or not, and for sitting in with us here, with me. And Apostle will be back next week, and Lady Jill will be back from their trip. And so I do want to encourage all of you to really prayerfully ask God. You don't realize how this ministry gives to so many. Right now, there's missionary money being sent many places, but right now they are just constantly giving, and just to know you're planting seed in kingdom ground. I'm going to ask you, there it is, to really consider giving into this ministry of KRM, not just because there's a need. I don't believe in giving out of need. I really believe we give out of seed. And so ask God what he would have you. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I would also just encourage people, to pray for Dr. Rick and his ministry. You know where to give at victorymin, the CashApp there, and also to KRM. And but pray for Dr. Rick, pray for Apostle and Jill. Amen. As they travel, not just for their safety. We know the Lord's hand of protection is on them, but that they would be rejuvenated and that they'd be used wherever they are, and they would come back with freshness. They always do. But just press into that. Yeah,
thank you so much. And tonight, if you're viewing this live, is Wednesday night. We call it Discipleship Wednesdays, and I know that Joseph Janik is teaching out of Apostle Chris's book, They Shall Be Saved, and I think they're in the third or fourth week, something like that. But you get so much out of it, so come out 6:30 Wednesday evenings to the service, and I think you'll really be blessed. And I can't think of anything else because we've got all kinds of stuff coming up. But for that, we're just going to say thank you for joining us, and as always, to the King.